I want to thank Joni Ernst for those great words, and thank your governor. I'll have more to say about both of them in a minute, but I got to tell you, the state of Iowa is truly blessed to have a principled conservative who serves this nation in uniform and who fights for the Hawkeye State every single day. Senator Joni Ernst is a national treasure. You know, I know we're all gathering here at a time of great progress, great hope, a time of choosing right around the corner. Before I get started, let me take a moment to address what I know is on the hearts of every Iowan and, frankly, people all across the heartland of this country. The derecho that destroyed millions of acres of crops, left hundreds of thousands of Iowans without power, and tragically took the lives of 2 Iowans and 1 Missouri. I must tell you, when I heard about this storm, as a lifelong Hoosier, I was taken aback to hear of the magnitude of this storm and its impact. I just met with families who literally have seen virtually their entire crop wiped out. They were standing strong, standing together. I assured them that they and all of those that have been impacted by this derecho are on the hearts and in the prayers of millions of Americans. But let me say, on behalf of the President of the United States and our administration, I want Iowans to know we are with you, we are going to stay with you, and we will work with your governor and your senators to make sure that we bring Iowa all the way back, bigger and stronger than ever before. I promise. But it really is great to be in Iowa. You know, from the first day of this administration, this president has stood strong with the people of this state. I promise you he always will. He loves this great state, and I got to tell you, as a son of the heartland, I feel right at home. That's why I'm here today. I'm here because Iowa and America need 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House. And while you're at it, we need 6 more years of Senator Joni Ernst in the United States Senate. And let me also say the President and I and Senator Ernst and your great governor need the great state of Iowa to send Marionette Miller Meeks and David Young to Washington, D.C. 2 great leaders. But thank you all for coming out today. I know that in the summertime, the Iowa State Fairgrounds is usually a little busier. But these are no ordinary times in which we live. But it's still a joy to be with all of you today. And I want to tell you, I'm here because I stand with President Donald Trump. When this president stands up for faith and family and the American flag, I stand with President Donald Trump. When this president stands up to the radical left and their socialist agenda, we stand with President Donald Trump. And when this president fights for America's farmers and ranchers and knows that the strength of this nation begins with the men and women who work the land, we stand with President Donald Trump. You know, 4 years ago, a movement was born. The movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And here in Iowa, you knew we could be strong again. You knew we could be prosperous again. You said yes to President Donald Trump in 2016, and I know Iowa's going to say yes to 4 more years of President Donald Trump in 2020. You know, the choice in this election couldn't be clearer, and the stakes couldn't be higher. In this president, you have a leader who's literally done more for this country's economy, more to strengthen our military, more to stand for the God-given liberties enshrined in the founding documents of this nation than any president in my lifetime. You know, when I think of the last 3.5 years, I think only one way you can describe it. It's been 3 years of action. It's been 3 years of results. It's been 3 years of promises made and promises kept. But we're just getting started, Iowa. I mean, think about it. President Trump has kept literally every promise he made to the people of Iowa. And then some. And the results have been incredible. I must tell you, it's the greatest honor of my life to be your vice president, but the highest title I'll ever hold is DAD. And as the proud father of a United States Marine and the father-in-law of a United States Navy pilot, I couldn't be more proud to serve with a president who has rebuilt the military of the United States of America. We made our strongest military in the world stronger still. This president cut taxes across the board for working families, small businesses, and family farms. And he's already cut more red tape than any president in the history of this country. In the wake of this president's agenda, businesses large and small, in our first 3 years, created more than 7 million jobs all across this nation. And 2 million Americans were lifted out of poverty. 7 million Americans were able to leave food stamps behind and pursue their dreams. This president and our entire administration, in the midst of all of it, always put family, farmers, and ranchers first. We did. In those tax cuts, we basically eliminated the estate tax for virtually every family farm. Death is no longer a taxable event. And being from the heartland, I know what input costs are. And this president actually allowed for immediate expensing of equipment, which was a tremendous boon to agriculture and to farmers. So we made great progress. Our economy was growing as never before. Literally, in 3 short years, President Trump and our allies in the Congress, like Senator Joni Ernst, worked together to create the strongest economy in the history of the world. And then the coronavirus pandemic struck our nation from China. And we've been going through a challenging time. But you know, early in this pandemic, the American people saw the leadership of President Donald Trump shine forth. This president marshaled not only a whole of government response, but a whole of America response. We reinvented testing, and now America has done more testing for the coronavirus than any nation on earth by far. At the President's direction, our task force arranged for the manufacture and the delivery of hundreds of millions of medical supplies to all of the incredible healthcare workers and hospitals across this nation. We've been working around the clock since February of this year, developing new therapeutics, medicines that are becoming increasingly available across the country. And I'm proud to say, I believe we will have a vaccine for the coronavirus by the end of this year. Only in America. Only under the leadership of President Donald Trump. Now, we have a ways to go, and we all have a role to play to continue to protect the vulnerable, to put the health of others first, to save lives. And I know the people of Iowa will do as you've done all along the way. You'll do just that. You'll put the health of others first. And I must tell you, not a day has gone by since the President tapped me to lead the White House Coronavirus Task Force that we haven't thought of families that have suffered loss. And today I know our hearts, and I encourage your prayers for the more than 160,000 American families that have lost loved ones, including here in Iowa. But I must tell you, our hearts are also full of gratitude for the lives that have been saved by the incredible first responders, doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers across this nation. Their efforts have been nothing short of heroic, and you have our thanks. And let me also say, President Trump and I couldn't be more grateful for the extraordinary leadership and character of Governor Kim Reynolds. She has done an amazing job leading this state through challenging times, and Governor Kim Reynolds will bring Iowa all the way back. And the American economy is coming back. You know, it's amazing to think at the height of this pandemic, our economy had lost 22 million jobs. But because of that solid foundation that we poured in those first 3 years of less taxes, more free and fair trade, more American energy, an American comeback has begun. And from that height of 22 million jobs lost, as of just a short time ago, this economy has already added back 9.3 million jobs, and we're just getting started. And I'll make you a promise, and the governor knows we mean it. As you in the Hawkeye State and people all across the country continue to contend with this pandemic, we will not rest, we will not relent, we will spare no expense and no effort until Iowa and America put the coronavirus in the past and we bring America all the way back. We open up America and open up America's schools. And to do that, we'll all do our part. But to bring America all the way back, we also need 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House. But with this president and this administration, it always begins with farmers and ranchers. To bring America all the way back, we're going to keep fighting for America's farmers and ranchers and for each and every one of you. You know, this president, I mentioned before, has already not just cut taxes for family farms and ranches, but this president has also been busy rolling back red tape at a record level. President Trump has signed more bills cutting federal red tape than any president in American history. And as Senator Ernst just reflected, and I was there the day he signed it, this president signed a measure to ensure that farmers and ranchers are able to control their own private property. We repealed the waters of the USA rule and restored private property rights here in Iowa and all across America. And where past administrations turned their backs on farmers and ethanol producers, President Trump told the people of Iowa this administration will work to expand ethanol markets. And that's just what we've done. And last year, you might remember, the president traveled to Council Bluffs and announced that E15 is now available year-round. Promises made, promises kept. The truth is, after decades of being held back, America is now a net exporter of energy around the world for the first time in 75 years. And we'll continue to fight to expand ethanol as a part of America's vital energy industry. We're securing our nation's future through energy independence and American energy dominance. The truth is, under this president's leadership, we're setting records every day. And with the strong leadership of Senator Joni Ernst, and with the strong and principled and unwavering conservative leadership of Senator Chuck Grassley, this president announced an agreement on renewable fuel standards that ensures a 15 billion gallon ethanol will be blended into the fuel supply in 2020. Iowa's farmers and ranchers are literally fueling and feeding the world, and we're going to continue to make sure that that's the reality. So it's been about cutting taxes. It's been about rolling back regulation. It's been about standing with the people of Iowa, unleashing American energy. But it's also been about free and fair trade. And when it comes to protecting Iowa's jobs, the Hawkeye State has no greater fighter on trade than President Donald Trump. You know, I don't have to tell you all here in Iowa the impact that NAFTA had on many communities and on manufacturing, particularly in this country. Back in 2016, when the President and I were first coming through the state, he said when it came to NAFTA, we could do better. He said he'd renegotiate our trading relationship with Mexico and Canada. It had operated under that agreement since 1995. Some people said it couldn't be done, but I watched him do it. He rolled his sleeves up, and the man who wrote the art of the deal got a great deal for the American people, and the USMCA is now the law of the land. And it's a huge win for Iowa's farmers and ranchers. In 2018 alone, Iowa's farmers and ranchers exported more than $6.6 billion worth of goods to Canada and Mexico. And Canada has actually agreed to expand market access for American dairy, for egg, for poultry. American wheat growers will have more access to a level playing field. We think we're going to sell $2.2 billion more in agricultural exports to Canada and Mexico alone. That includes $300 million in dairy exports just in the first few years. USMCA is a win for Iowa, it's a win for the heartland, and it's a win for America's farmers. And we actually think, experts tell us it's going to create about 600,000 jobs and add almost $250 billion to our economy right out of the gate. It really is incredible. And when it comes to trade, even before the president took office, he made it clear that the era of economic surrender to China was over, and we were going to fight for American jobs, American farmers, and American workers. You know, for years, one administration after another in both political parties stood idly by while we saw China amass an extraordinary trade surplus with the United States. I mean, half of our international trade deficit when we took office was with China alone, at a time when China was giving us very limited access to what we make and to what we grow in this country. I mean, $500 billion of our international trade deficit was with China. But as President Trump made clear, those days are over. We stood strong. And farmers across this country also stood strong. You stood with us as the President put tariffs in place to level the playing field with China. And I have to tell you, the way farmers and ranchers stood in the pocket for this President and for free and fair trade was an inspiration to the nation, and you have our thanks. Because farmers and ranchers understand what it is to do hard things, to get things done. Sometimes you just got to take a firm stand, which is exactly what President Trump did. And because of the stand that you took, and the stand that President Trump took, it seems like just a few short months ago, President Trump signed a Phase 1 trade deal with China, and we secured $50 billion in agricultural exports to China for the next 2 years. That's progress. Now, we have a ways to go, and most of the tariffs the President put in place are still there, but it's a beginning. And I'm pleased to report to you that I just learned this morning on Air Force Two that corn sales to China just broke all records last month. On July 30th, the USDA reported corn export sales of 1.94 million metric tons to China, the largest daily sales total ever. It's working. They're buying. And we're leveling the playing field. In July alone, flash sales of U.S. soybeans also to China reached almost 3 million metric tons. The percent of U.S. agricultural exports that are going to China now are compared with the rest of the world. It's twice the share of what went to China in 2017. Men and women gathered at this Farmers and Ranchers for Trump rally. That's what leadership looks like. That's the leadership of President Donald Trump. And I promise you, we're going to continue to stand firm with China until we level the playing field. Not just for American agriculture, but for American manufacturing and American workers. Because under this president and this administration, we always put America first. It's amazing to think all that we've done in 3.5 years through extraordinary opposition from the left and from the Democrats, and through the midst of a challenging pandemic. Incredible what happens when you have a president who's willing to fight each and every day. And I promise you, the guy I served with is never going to stop fighting to keep the promises he made to the people of Iowa. But you all deserve to know all the progress we've made is now at risk. My fellow Americans, we know we're passing through a time of testing, but soon we will come to a time for choosing. And that's something the people of Iowa know well. And the choice in this election, as I said, has never been clearer. The stakes have never been higher. So I want to talk to you before I leave about what's at stake. Talk to you about the choice that our nation faces. So you can talk to your neighbors and your friends at the next farm and the next ranch, at work and at worship. Families here in Iowa, make no mistake about it, our economic recovery is on the ballot. But there are also things on the ballot more fundamental and more foundational to our country as well. You know, I think this coming election, the choice is not whether America is going to be more conservative or more liberal, whether America is going to be more Democrat or more Republican. I think the choice in this election is whether America remains America. The choice in this election is whether we leave to our children and grandchildren a country that's grounded on our highest ideals of freedom, free markets, and the inalienable right to life and liberty, or whether we'll leave to our children and grandchildren a country that's fundamentally transformed into something else. The truth is, we stand at a crossroads of freedom. Before us lie two paths, one based on the dignity and worth of every individual, and the other on the growing control of the state. One leads to greater freedom and opportunity for every American, regardless of race or creed or color. And the other leads inexorably to socialism and decline. And make no mistake about it, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would set America on a path of socialism and decline, and we're not gonna let it happen. President Trump set our nation on a path of freedom and opportunity from our first day in office, but it's amazing when you look at their agenda. In the midst of a global pandemic, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would actually raise taxes by $4 trillion. That's more than double the tax increase that Hillary Clinton ever proposed. By contrast, President Donald Trump signed the largest tax cuts and tax reform in American history, and we're going to keep delivering tax relief to working Americans. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would bury the economy under an avalanche of red tape, more regulation, and more bureaucracy. In fact, the California senator that he named as his running mate this week said during her short campaign for president that Americans needed to be, and I quote, educated about the effect of our eating habits on our environment. Senator Kamala Harris said she would change the dietary guidelines of this country to reduce the amount of red meat Americans can eat. Well, I've got some red meat for you. We're not going to let Joe Biden and Kamala Harris cut America's meat. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris even have a $2 trillion plan to abolish fossil fuels. He wants to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord and implement his own version of the Green New Deal. And I don't have to tell all of you. These radical left policies would devastate America's farmers and ranchers. By contrast, President Trump has put an all-of-the-above energy strategy on the table that's driving an American energy renaissance, and we're exporting energy to the world, and we're going to keep expanding. And the choice isn't just clear at home and on issues that bear directly on our livelihoods. It's a contrast of leadership on the world stage. The American people deserve to remember that Joe Biden was a leading voice of appeasement toward Iran and supported the Iran nuclear deal. President Donald Trump, he got us out of the Iran nuclear deal, and Qasem Soleimani is gone. And where 4 previous administrations made promises to America's most cherished ally, it was President Donald Trump who kept his promise when he moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the State of Israel. And I don't know if you heard about it yet, but just this morning in the Oval Office, the President announced, for the first time in more than 25 years, a leading Arab nation has normalized relations with the State of Israel. The UAE is recognizing Israel. That's history, and that's leadership. So this president has stood with our allies, and he's stood up to our enemies. Closer to home, he's also stood with the men and women who serve in law enforcement every single day, and we always will. President Trump and I know what the people of Iowa know. Men and women who serve in law enforcement are the best people in this country, and we will always back the blue. Joe Biden actually said that he believes that America is, in his words, and I quote, systemically racist, and that law enforcement has, again, I quote, an implicit bias against minorities. In fact, when Joe Biden was asked whether he would cut funding to law enforcement, he said, yes, absolutely. Well, let me make it very clear. On behalf of this president and this administration, we're not going to defund the police, not now, not ever. So it's about security at home and abroad. It's about prosperity. But ultimately, it's about the rule of law. And when it comes to the rule of law, we all know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to be appointing activist judges to our courts who will legislate from the bench. By contrast, President Trump has already appointed more than 200 federal judges to our courts at every level, and they are all conservatives who will uphold the God-given liberties in our Constitution, like the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, and the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. And none of that would have been possible without the stalwart support of Iowa's two great senators. Join me in thanking Senator Joni Ernst and Senator Chuck Grassley for standing strong for a conservative judiciary in America. And throughout it all, I must tell you, I couldn't be more proud to serve as Vice President to the most pro-life president in American history. But men and women, with an election roughly 80 days away, we know we have work to do to carry our message forward. Because despite all the progress that we've made, including 2 justices to the Supreme Court, a few recent decisions remind us that we have a ways to go. Like that 5-4 decision that struck down a Louisiana law that simply required doctors that work at abortion clinics to have admitting privileges at a local hospital. Or like the 5-4 decision that actually said that the state of Nevada could impose greater restrictions on Calvary Chapel than on Caesar's Palace. Men and women, one thing is clear with those 2 decisions. We need more conservatives on the Supreme Court of the United States. So we need 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House. That's right. So for American strength, American jobs, for law and order and liberties and life, we've got to decide right here and right now that Joe Biden will never be President of the United States. We're going to re-elect President Donald Trump. So Iowa, get ready. Buckle up. It's on. You all know more than most about campaigns, and I promise you we're going to be carrying the message that you just heard all across this state and all across this nation. But we need all of you to get ready to bring it, just like you did 4 years ago. Bring this enthusiasm. Bring your voice and your support. Tell your neighbors and your friends all that we've accomplished and all that this president and this administration are going to be able to do. Continue to make this nation stronger and more prosperous than ever before, and continue to build an American future on all the ideals and values that have made the nation great in the past. And as we open up America again, as we bring our nation back, I want to encourage you to also reflect those values that are so unique to farmers and ranchers. And it's summed up in one word, and that's faith. I woke up this morning and I just thought I'm going to be with some of the best people in this country, not just in this state. I mean, growing up in the heartland as I did, we had a cornfield in my backyard. We had about 100 head of cattle. My dad had with a few partners. I've mucked more than my share of stalls for horses. But I've never failed to be inspired by the character and the faith of men and women who work the land, who raise the livestock, who feed the nation. I mean, you're people who come from generations of Americans who've endured great hardship like Iowa just passed through. And you came through it with a resilience and a strength that I think has been a wellspring of strength for the nation. You know, I've always marveled at how many times the Bible tells us to consider the farmer, to learn from the patience of the farmer, and apply that to our own personal lives. And as I got up today, I couldn't help but remember what one great radio host said so many years ago, when Paul Harvey talked about why God made a farmer. He said, on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker, so God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the fields, milk cows again, eat supper, then go to town and stay past midnight at a meeting of the school board. So God made a farmer. God had to have somebody willing to ride the ruts at double speed to get the hay in ahead of the rain clouds, and yet stop in midfield and race to help when he sees the first smoke from a neighbor's place. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to tame lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-combed pullets. Will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. So God made a farmer. Somebody to seed, weed, feed, breed, and take and disc and plow and plant and tie the fleece and strain the milk and replenish the self-feeder and finish a hard week's work with a 5-mile drive to church. And somebody who'd bail a family together with the soft, strong bonds of sharing, who would laugh and then sigh and then reply with smiling eyes when his son says he wants to spend his life doing what Dad does. So God made a farmer. I think God made a farmer, and in so doing, he made America stronger. And that will always be true. So in these days when so much is on the line, when we have so much at stake in this election, I ask you to draw on that wellspring of strength. Understand that you're leaders in your community. People respect you, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. So I encourage you to avail yourself of that strength. And if you're inclined to bow the head and bend the knee, which no farmer I ever met wasn't, I'd encourage you to do that too. And just remember that if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray, he'll do like he's always done through much more challenging times than we're living through today. He'll hear from heaven and he'll heal this land. This one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. So to farmers and ranchers for Trump, thank you for your support. And I'm absolutely convinced if all of us do all that we need to do between now and November 3rd, with your support, with your example, with your voice, and with your prayers, we're going to re-elect this president for 4 more years. We're going to send Senator Joni Ernst back to Capitol Hill. We're going to elect 2 new great members to the United States House of Representatives in a new Republican majority. And we're going to bring America all the way back, because we're going to make America great again. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless America.